Do you want to live in the mundane or do you want to live in the mystery? The answer is clear. I believe we all want to live in the mystery because the mystery is the dimension of presence. It's the dimension in which miracles happen. It's the dimension of magnetism. Magnetism meaning we're literally pulling in beauty into our field, into our vortex. Hi and welcome, my loves. Today we're going to dive deep in one of my favorite explorations, and it's the space of mystery, the space of magnetism, the space of the erotic. And today we're going to learn how to transform any moment from the mundane into the mystery, into magnetism. And as the Empress, and you know that all of my videos are a dedication to the Empress energetics, we are the sovereign creatrix, the sovereign creation. And that means we have the master tools to create our own reality. And what I'm going to give you today, or what we're going to speak about today, is one of the greatest tools to master if we really want to create our own experience. Because if you know how to master the erotic, if you know how to invite the mystery and magnetism into every single interaction, you have become the architect of your reality. Because it doesn't matter what life puts in front of you or what you find yourself in, you have the tool to make it exquisite. And we're going to go deeper into what the space of the erotic really is. Forget about any connotation you have with the word erotic. It has nothing to do with that. The erotic is an intimate, palpable space where magnetism exists, right? It's almost like a trance-based state that you find yourself in. It's this bubble of experience. And it's activating for the heart. It's activating for your sexual centers. And again, it's not connected to distorted sexuality or the word erotic that was put on all of this disgustingness. It's this exquisite energy that literally gets your life force flowing, that is activating you, that is making this moment so much more special than this mindless running around thinking about 20 things to do and having very superficial mind chatter like conversations, right? The erotic is a space of presence. It's exquisite. It's filled with magnetism, with palpable magnetism. And so as an example, if you go into a dim lit restaurant on Valentine's Day, you will see couples in that space. While compared to, I don't know, Chipotle on a Wednesday afternoon, you will probably not feel that space, right? And it's like, just as an example, when you walk into this dim lit, I don't know, Nobu on a Valentine's Day, you walk into this space and you're like, oh, feels like people are making love in here, right? Even though not physically, but there's this, there's just something about that. And we're going to go deeper into that because this is not just between lovers. This is also between people that co-create together, friends, or when there's a deeply delicious spiritual exploration. And then just to take that example of Chipotle on a Wednesday afternoon, we walk into that and there's just a lot of like probably noise, but it's more of a mundane dimension. And so as the feminine, when you master this tool, you become the architect. What I mean by that is when you have the ability to take any moment and transform it into joy, fill it with sensuality, lusciousness, inspiration, safety, that is mastery, right? This is mastery. You basically hold the key to divinity. And when you know how to work that, you also unlock divinity for other people, right? Especially if certain people aren't used to that state. And maybe they can put their finger on it, and depending where they're at, they might be enchanted by you, or they might mistake it for flirting. But if someone is ready, they will be invited into a space of divinity. They will be invited into a space of presence, and they might not be able to put their finger on it, but it's almost like a data package that you leave for them in the field. And whenever they're ready to unpack it, they will unpack it. When you're in your space with your lover, right, you have the power to take him from the mind, from the mundane, from the logic back into presence, exquisite nature. As the man, when you know how to invite a woman into that space, or if you know how to hold that space, you create so much safety for her, right? You basically create the perfect container for ongoing foreplay. You create a container of trust, right? So when she's in your field, there's this, I can come back into my body. I'm safe here. And if you know that as a couple, you're dancing and you're playing, and that creates oxytocin. It's the hormone, that love hormone, that is created through trust. And it's also what allows for deeper orgasm. So a man that can hold that erotic space, that space of magnetism, is basically holding a space of pleasure for his woman, or creates a container in which she can choose to experience pleasure. Because of course, this is not all on the man, right? If you have a woman next to you that doesn't know how to be invited, that doesn't know how to respond to that, that is maybe very traumatized or scared to let go of control or scared to let go of her masculine shield, you can have all the skills as a man, that woman won't respond to you. But usually what I find is that women crave that. They crave that because it's so rare. And if you as the masculine know how to create that, this is basically the secret recipe to get everything you want anytime. And of course, this has to be a pure container, right? A woman can feel when it's pure or when it isn't. But essentially, we as women want to live in pleasure. So we will honor a man that knows how to create that. The men that I was most attracted to in my past were men that on the first look physically weren't attractive, right? Or not my type, but they knew how to hold me in that container. And it's what makes a woman almost, I don't want to use the word obsessed, but it's a hypnotic state. It's so exquisite. It's so delicious because it's so safe. And when our body feels safe, our body can feel pleasure. So if a man has that, he has that special something, right? He has that mystery, or he knows how to invite into the mystery. And on the contrary, you can have a man that checks literally all of your boxes, right? He can be tall and handsome and well-spoken and maybe wealthy or whatsoever, well-dressed. If he doesn't know how to invite you into the erotic, it's bound to fail, right? It's like, yeah, you look good on paper, and that's about it. And so the same goes for women, right? You can have women that are maybe not the beauty standard. It doesn't freaking matter, right? This is oftentimes, right? This comes up right now. When men cheat, and I'm sure you have either examples of maybe your own past or of your friend's past, a man cheats with a woman that is less attractive. And this is where this comes in. And I've had that with friends where I'm like, yo, dude, why? But now I get it, right? This other woman, maybe she wasn't physically beautiful or as beautiful on the first glance, like just objectively, but she had that special something. She knew how to create an erotic container. She knew how to create the space of magnetism and mystery. And so you can have a freaking supermodel in front of you. If she doesn't know how to cultivate that space or give into the space, it's mundane, right? It's mundane. And I see that in so many of these Insta models, right? Where you look at them and you're like, oh my God, but then you see a reel and you hear the voice and you're like, huh, you're actually not that attractive because you're a robot. So, right? And that's exactly the difference. Loves, before I get too deep into the topic, I just want to remind you that our 9-month mastermind is starting on November 22nd, and the early bird price is up until November 19th. So you still have a couple more days. And this is really meant as the rebirth portal. We're going to go really, really deep. We are 9 women so far, so it's a very deep and potent container. If you feel the call, if you feel like you're supposed to be a part of this, follow your heart. I'm setting the intention and I'm creating the container for us to go as deep as we possibly can, to create the most potent manifestation portal we can together, and to purify everything that no longer serves your highest version. So if you feel it, connect with me, sign up. You still have a couple days. As a couple, if you know how to dance that dance, this is oftentimes what will make or break your relationship. And so the mastery of this is truly one of the most important and vital components of a relationship. And it seems so luxurious almost, right? It seems so subtle energetically. And yet, if we look back at old relationships and we look back at times where it was really beautiful and then the time where it didn't work out, exactly that energetic or the lack of information around this energetic was the point that broke the relationship. A relationship will only survive so long without the cultivation of the mystery. And this has nothing to do with a honeymoon phase. I don't believe in honeymoon phases. I believe that life gives us a glimpse of like, hey, I'm going to create a phase where both of you can learn the art of the erotic, meaning the first beginning stage of the relationship is for us to take note of, how am I acting with him? What creates this exquisiteness in the moment? How am I looking at him? How am I receiving him? How is he receiving me? So it's very much so meant as a space of exploration of like, okay, what's happening here? And if we learn that, we can introduce that at any stage in our relationship. So that's why I don't believe in the honeymoon phase. The honeymoon phase is literally a first taste. It's an initiation. It's a phase for learning and note taking of like, got it, that's noted. But a lot of couples don't do that. They have this immense attraction in the beginning and then they go on and they slip into the mundane and they lack presence and they either don't know how to create erotic spaces or they have forgotten about it or they're not putting in the presence that is actually needed. And this is when we create distance. And so what is an erotic space? And like I explained in the beginning, the erotic space is basically presence. It's a space in which there is a palpable magnetism, right? Again, you can feel it. I gave this example with the restaurant, or you can feel it when you're walking into a room and two people have a very heated conversation, right? If they had a fight, you walk in and you're like, uncomfortable, right? You can feel it if a couple was just fighting. Like as a waitress, again, I like to give that example because it was basically a sociological experiment for me. But it's like you can feel when you walk into the table and they just had an argument and it's like this awkward energy. And the same goes for eroticism. You can feel when you walk towards a table or you walk into the room, and there's this inspiration. There is a literally charged magnetic field. And it's a field in which longing and desire is cultivated. That doesn't mean that it has to go anywhere, right? But it's this feeling of anticipation. It's this feeling of, oh, I want more of that. Oh, I want more of that. Oh, I want more of that. It's a very exquisite state, right? It's kind of like compared to when you have a sip of the best chocolate ceremonial grade cacao ever, and you have that one sip and it's so good, and you're like, oh, I want more of that. But you're taking tiny sips, right? And it's constantly leaving you longing for more rather than chugging down the whole thing and you're good. That's kind of like the sense of the feeling of the erotic space. It's a space that makes you want more and more and more and more. And for that space, feminine and masculine know how to dance their dance and play their roles. And that state is a very exquisite and very vulnerable state. And when I say vulnerable, I mean that it takes a lot of presence and focus to hold that container. And you could easily disrupt that with frequencies that do not belong in here. And I always like to compare it with creating a chi ball. Let's say for the first time, you're creating a chi ball. That's what the erotic container is, right? It's an amplified, it's a field of amplified magnetism, just like the chi ball. And you have to be aware what you're putting in there. It requires focus and presence. So when I'm first building this chi ball, right, I'm starting and I'm sending out the energy through my hands, and I'm attempting to feel the magnetism. And I get really quiet and there are no thoughts. There's only focus on this magnetic field between my hands. Can I feel it? And then when you feel it, you expand it and you expand it and you expand it. And then the chi ball gets bigger and bigger. But when I then drop my focus and I start to think about what's going to be for dinner later on, or what that person said earlier on, then it's almost like, ooh, shit, I lost the chi ball. I lost the magnetism. I got to start again. And this is the same thing with the space of the erotic. When we're finding ourselves in that container, there are certain frequencies that would be very disruptive. And an example would be frequencies of the mind. It's a very charged speech. And that speech comes from our sacral. It comes more from the root. It comes more from the body. And if I would disrupt it with mind, something that comes from my throat rather than from the depths of my body, I would disrupt the space. Right? We're nourishing the space of the erotic with a certain frequency. And so, as an example, if your man walks into a barbershop, he probably doesn't walk in with his awareness in his balls and like deep in his body. He's probably walking in there like, yo, bro, hey guys, what's up? Right? It's a different energy. That energy would be jolting to the space of the erotic. So that's why both need to be aware what is being cultivated. And so if you're in that space, but all of a sudden your partner is dropping it and is using his barbershop voice or his outside voice, this container falls apart. Like with the chi ball. And it's no biggie, right? We all do that. We just have to learn, okay, how do I recreate the chi ball? And let's do this again. And the same goes for us women. If your man holds the space, but all of a sudden you get flustered and you bring in, oh, but I got to do this tomorrow. Or you're starting to talk about a story or you bring up gossip. These things do not belong. in the space of eroticism. And since this chi ball is a space of amplified charge, if we bring in frequencies that disrupt that very charge, that are not a match to this exquisiteness, right, we basically burst the chi ball and we have to go again. No biggie, it happens. But this is where this information is so vital. We have to be able to observe ourselves when we do this. This space is also not meant to please one or the other partner. It's basically the container of pleasure, the container of mystery, the container of presence that both parties essentially always want to jump into. And for that, both assume certain roles. The man usually embodies a more masculine pole, and the woman embodies the more feminine pole, exactly to be able to play within this amplified field. And if there is a confusion around the embodied energy, then it's very hard to cultivate this erotic space. Let's say if a woman is very much so in her shielding, it's very hard to invite her, right? Because if the man is inviting her into the space, but she doesn't get it and she doesn't know how to join into this deliciousness, and she stays right here and speaks from the mind rather than from the body, or she speaks harsh rather than from the body, right? You can tell the difference. This is a totally different space. She would be a complete disruptor to the field of the erotic. And again, this is not about pleasing the man or the man pleasing her. This is about joining into pleasure together. This is about joining in presence. Because if she were to respond like that, it shows that she has a lack of presence. She's not aware of what the moment requires. And the same goes for the masculine, right? If I show up and I'm inviting him into a softer, more delicious space, and he keeps on cracking jokes, which is sweet on one hand, but it's not where the moment maybe wants to invite us into, there's a disruption, right? She's very much so in her body and he's cracking jokes. Now, this is where the mastery comes in, because if you cannot hold the container just because your partner isn't immediately joining in, you haven't mastered that skill set and that tool, that creation tool, in the first place. So there's really no one to blame. If you as a woman invite your man, and let's say he's just amped up or he's hyped up and he can't join you in, and you get upset or bitchy just because he can't really join you in that deliciousness, you didn't master that yet in the first place. You didn't know how to hold a strong container yet. Holding a container is not just a masculine trait. You as a woman can do the same thing, right? It goes both ways. Sometimes you will be the one inviting him, and sometimes he will be the one inviting you. But if you get upset the moment he can't immediately respond to your exquisite nature, you have more to learn, right? There's more mastery to embody, and I'm speaking for myself as well. And it's also something that even if our partner doesn't respond to it, or if we're on a date and that person doesn't respond to it, you want to hold that for yourself, because as long as you're having an enjoyable experience, it doesn't freaking matter. And so this is oftentimes where I would find myself in resentment. It's almost the sense of, well, if you don't respond to my exquisite nature, then you don't get it, or you're not worthy of it. You're not worthy of this alive energy. And that is robbing us from our own delicious nature, right? Because I can hold that when I'm by myself. I don't need someone to respond to it. And essentially, I want a beautiful experience. I want a joyful experience. So if I'm taking that away just because I don't believe in the moment that he deserves that delicious nature, or he deserves that amount of magnetism and eroticism because maybe he wasn't living up to the standards I created for our relationship. Now I'm taking this away. That makes absolutely no sense, because you're making it harder for him to join back in, but you're also taking this delicious essence of life away from you. So now you're also not living in that. That makes you harsh. So I know a lot of us women, we kind of subconsciously do that. But in the end, do you want to live in the mundane, or do you want to live in the mystery? Right? And I think the answer is clear. I believe we all want to live in the mystery, because the mystery is the dimension of presence. It's the dimension in which miracles happen. It's the dimension of magnetism. Magnetism meaning we're literally pulling in beauty into our field, into our vortex. So yes, naturally we want to be in that. And just because maybe our man, our husband, can't respond to it right now doesn't mean we have to take it away, doesn't mean we have to punish ourselves and the field for that. I want to give you a tangible example how I really effed this up in the past. So there's one, I mean, there are plenty moments, but there's one that comes to mind right now, and it's from a previous relationship. And we were in the car, and he was usually very, very good at holding that space. He was very deep. He was a deep thinker. He existed in the deeper realms of reality, basically 24/7. So he was very good at holding that container. But we could feel a cop behind us. There was this primal fear in him that came up when he felt the police car going to stop him. And he completely lost it. And I was the freaking worst. I really was. Because after that, I called him all of the things, like you named it. Like in any way I could demasculate him, I did. And that is, of course, that's a really, really extreme example of how you can drop the container, right? This happens way more subtly usually. But at that point, it was very wild. Like I got so upset with him, and I couldn't hold up the container for even 2 minutes. That was how weak I was in my embodiment. That's how harsh I was. And again, not embodied in my softness and my femininity. Like the moment he dropped our erotic container, I was bashing him. And that happens though in very subtle ways as well. So again, this is what I'm saying. If you lose your shit the moment the container drops, there's a lot of mastery that you have to embody, right? Because it will happen. The chi ball that we've created will collapse, and it's no big deal when you know how to invite back in. This space is not only something that is present in relationships. This is also the space that creates beauty in co-creation. And when I make music with my friends, there is this deep intimacy that is created from there. When we're all in the pocket, right? When I just rip it and someone is playing the acoustic guitar and someone's playing the violin, and there's just this merging almost of energy. It doesn't feel like we're separate. It feels like we're all one, co-creating something. That's the beauty of the erotic space. And this is what I'm saying. The erotic space has really nothing to do with distorted sexuality. It's life force. It's a trance-based state. It's a state in which we all together enter a different brainwave. And I'm going to post an interview down here just for reference of what I mean, because maybe you need more examples of that. I definitely needed that. And I attended a deep workshop with Snow Raven this weekend. And I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she is a shamani from Arctic Siberia. And the purity that she embodies is something I haven't seen before. She grew up with animals in nature, and she only left that tribal living 5 years ago when she moved to the US. And so what she holds is a container so pure, so true, it brought me to tears. And when I speak about the space of eroticism, that's what I mean. And so that's why I'm going to link an interview with her so you can feel the space that she creates and feel the purity and the magnetism and the presence of God in the space that she creates. And when we speak about presence, it's God is present in this interaction. I guess that's even a deeper way to explain presence. Presence is not just I'm focusing on you. Presence means I'm holding an energy of such divine purity that God is witnessing our interaction right now. God is here to witness this, which is what creates immense safety, right? So this is, wow, yeah, this just lands for me even deeper. Like, this is a very beautiful way to describe presence. Because what I realized is oftentimes when I share that with certain men, they don't really get what the feminine means or the woman means when she says, "You're not present with me." What she's actually saying is, God isn't present in this interaction. God isn't witnessing. Like, I cannot feel God in you right now, or I cannot feel God behind your eyes. When you're looking at me, I don't feel God witnessing me. Right? There's something else there. That's exactly what we mean, whether we were able to verbalize that or not. Presence means God is witnessing through my eyes. God is witnessing the space through my eyes and through my body, and God is witnessing you through my eyes. That is what true presence is. Shoo, damn, that was a deep one. Wow. Wow. This is landing for me right now. That's the erotic. That's the erotic. God is present behind both eyes. God is witnessing you through me, and I'm being witnessed by God through your eyes. And that's what creates this magnetism. That's what creates safety. That's what creates the erotic space. Do you see how deep this goes? This is beyond any superficial, let me be feminine, let me be masculine. When God is witnessing, we know exactly what roles to assume. So this is why it's vital for us to know how to surrender to God. Because when we surrender to either the feminine or the masculine, we're surrendering to God. Right? If my man invites me into this godly space, but I can't let go of my shields, I'm resisting God in the moment. And I'm resisting all of the healing and all of the divine intervention that might come with surrendering into the space. And the same goes for the masculine. If I'm inviting my partner, my man, my husband into this sacred dance, into this sensual space, and he's resisting out of trauma, then he might be resisting the immense healing that could happen when we both enter the space of the erotic. Wow. I love that you got to witness in real life how that just landed so much deeper for me. Like, yeah, there's a new reverence that I just regained for the space. How beautiful. Wow. This is a very beautiful space to close this container. I'll be sitting with this for a little bit. Thank you so much for joining into this exploration, and let's share. Please share in the comment section how you cultivate that space, or maybe what you just realized. I'm very, very curious. I love you.